Welcome to A Matter of Perspective with Judge Derwin Webb. I am Derwin Webb, coming to you from the Fraser History Museum. Now, it's Women's History Month right now, and I can't think of a better person to start this month off with a discussion about women's history with my good friend Jessica Loving. Jessica, good afternoon. How are you today?
I am well. Thank you very much.
Jessica, I have done a lot of research on you. I know your biography, I know your history, your world travel, but you had to start somewhere. Tell me where you're from. Tell us where you came from and what brought you to Louisville.
Well, I was born and raised in Madisonville, Kentucky, which is down in the western part of the state in Hopkins County. And my family, my mother's family and my father's family had been in that area for several generations. And so I'm a product of Kentucky. And that really is, what was the foundation of what I do and why I do the things I do. I was lucky to be raised by people who were very forward-thinking, open-minded people, and they taught me that I had a responsibility to make the world a better place.
Now, when you came to the university, you came in an interesting time in our country.
Yes.
Mid-'60s, you got there. I know you graduated in '68. You had an opportunity to meet players like Charlie Johnson, Wade Houston. So you were at the university during the Civil Rights era. What was it like for you being at the university during that time, and especially knowing those guys?
Yeah,
then?
It was real important to me. It's been a very important part of my life, and those guys are an important part of my life. They're still friends of mine. In fact, Charlie and I laugh because we live in the same building now. It was wonderful getting to be friends with those guys, and broadening my horizons. And it kind of was an extension of my experience in Madisonville, because I had felt after James Van Leer was integrating the public schools as a little kid, then during my high school years, there were a group of kids who integrated the high school. It was a handful of guys, about eight guys. And so this was part of my experience, was realizing that, hey, it's a nice opportunity to have a lot of new friends with different experiences. And so we got to spend a lot of time sitting around in the dorm talking and sharing ideas and sharing experiences. And, it was a great experience. And they're still my friends. And we're working on a project together. I came up with the idea of documenting the experience that Eddie Whitehead, Sam Smith, and Wade Houston had as the first three African-American basketball players at U of L. They broke those barriers.
I want to stay in the 60s for a second, because I remember talking to you one time about a story when you went south with someone that was a little bit darker than you. What that experience was like going south with that person. Tell us about that.
Well, at one experience, which maybe this is the one, and we weren't really too far south. We were the two friends and I. Well, there were four of us. There were two of us, two girls from Madisonville, Lizzie Fox and myself. Lizzie was also white. And then the other two girls in this little group of four, one was she was a young woman. She was already 21 years old and a graduate student. And Faye was from Arlington, which was near a small town near Madisonville, even smaller town. And then Angela Harris, who was Charlie Johnson's first wife. They were dating at the time. And Angela Harris, who was from Virginia, she was a freshman with Lizzie and me. And so the three of us were going to Madisonville. Angela was going home for spring break with Lizzie and me to visit. And Faye was riding the same bus to go to Arlington. And I'd been on that bus once before, and I knew there was about a 15-minute stop in Beaver Dam, Kentucky for the dinner stop at around 4:30 in the afternoon. And I knew we had about 15 minutes to eat. And so we go into this little diner, and the four of us are sitting there, and nobody's waiting on us, and this is the spring of 1965. And so finally, it dawns on me, the light bulb went off, why we weren't being served. And so I looked at my friends and I said, well, I know why we're not being served. Well, this is outrageous. We have a Civil Rights Act, and I'm getting up to go, I'm going to go talk to the manager. And Faye, who was older and wiser, reached across the table and put her hand on my arm and said, it's okay, Jessica, we're not going to starve. Just let it go. And I went, oh, that might mean dead in a ditch, right? And that was my learning experience that, oh, okay, sometimes expressing one's outrage is dangerous.
Right.
Part of growing up is realizing that history and progress are not a trajectory, a straight line going up. That's when I began to learn that it's a cycle, that we have to fight the same battles
right.
over and over again.
You graduate in '68 with your degree from the University of Louisville in humanities. Mm-hmm. So you decide to go off into the world and you make your way over to the ACLU. Tell me how you got there.
How I got there. Well, it's sort of a convoluted, like everything else in my life, it was sort of, I was thinking of going here and I decided to go there. I was going to go to Columbia University for graduate school after I graduated, and then ended up getting engaged to my first husband, who was my boyfriend in college. He was from New York and he was going to medical school. So I stayed at U of L and ended up first I was doing graduate work in art history. I had a really nice job in the art history department as assistant curator of the slide collection, and it was a lot of fun, and I enjoyed art history. But one day, because again, this was in the late 60s, early 70s, and civil rights activities, war in Vietnam, and I was sitting in the art history library thinking, I'm studying 16th century Italian painting, which is a lot of fun, but the world's going to hell in a handbasket around me. I've got to do something more important. So I switched over to a graduate program in education that was for liberal arts majors who wanted to teach in the inner city. And so we got certified to teach, and then we're working on a master's degree.
Got a couple more questions to ask you. What type of progress do you think women have made since the era started, if you understand what I mean?
Well, we think about how long women fought for the right to vote. I think it was about a 72-year battle before they got the right to vote with the 19th Amendment in 1920. And then we started trying to get other rights and, equal pay for equal work and all of the different things, which of course pales in comparison to how long Black people in this country had sought equal opportunities and equal rights. And, it's been a 400-year struggle. And as with Black people getting the right to vote, when things would get better, then somebody later would come along and pass new laws and try to restrict things again. Very similar to what we're experiencing now with the efforts to restrict voting rights, make it harder for people to vote. And that's usually directed at Black people or at people who don't have the luxury of being able to leave work and go vote. And the same thing happened with women, that we would make progress and then things would slip back around. And so we've made a lot of progress, and I'm pleased to say that it's a different world than it was when I was a young woman. But then sometimes I'm surprised at how far we haven't come.
Jessica, thank you for your time. Thank you for being here. Someone told me when I was thinking about running for office that I needed to contact you, and you not only talked to me, but you agreed to be my campaign manager and help me get across the finish line to help me stay as a judge. So I wanted to thank you for that publicly.
Well, you're most welcome, and our friend, Judge Bill McAnulty. So anyone who was a friend of his could be a friend of mine, but now you're a family member, so
I appreciate that.
it's like another son.
As we like to close the show, I always say this. Doesn't matter what you say, doesn't matter what I think. At the end of the day, it's all a matter of perspective. Thank you very much.